For our comments, if you tell us what number, and if you got any other questions, of course.
Sure. Well, Rebecca, we've been emailing, and I mean, the bottom line on this, I think y'all are aware of the DO that goes with this property, and it was done under the cluster provision. It's entitled the 301 acre lots, and how we get there, I think we'd all be well served to create as much open space as we can. We'd like to take we're proposing to do a PD and make them a minimum half-acre lot so we could cluster even more. And now we just need to figure out how do we get there. I think everybody, at the end of the day, would be in favor of more open space. So we're just trying to figure out how do we get there. So that's kind of the bottom line. If we want to start there, Rebecca, that's sort of a global issue that we need to get our hands around first.
Okay. How much more open space?
Well, I mean, theoretically, if you had 301 acre lots and you went to half acre, you'd be creating a whole lot more open space. I mean, we're not wanting to spread I mean, right there is just pure math. That's 150 acres. So,
okay, because right now it's required at what, 1,000?
Yeah, about 1,500.
yeah,
And I'm just looking at the development order. 1,017 acres of open space, upland open space.
right. But that's not on track 3. That's on tracks 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
So, I don't know how much. I couldn't tell in there how much open space is required on parcel 3. It said that we only had to have 40 acres.
So under the 2 units per 10 acres in the DO, it would be 40 more acres on the tract that we're looking to develop. So right now we have to provide 40. So we're looking to go to half-acre units, which creates at least another 150, but it's really actually more significant than that because the road network would be that much more compact, so we can create much larger open space areas. And really one of the questions we're going to struggle with a little bit as we move forward is we're looking at creating some larger tracts toward the north. But that really comes down to how compact can we make the rest of the project with half-acre lots. And I think, Paul, you were going to be looking into that conflict in the comp plan that says a couple of mutually exclusive things with regard to that matter. I don't know if you've formed an opinion on that yet or not.
I reviewed the material, and I agree with Rebecca and her interpretation of that right now you have the PD, you have the development order for 301 acre lots.
Right.
And again, that runs with the property until such time as it's changed. And it also says they have to be consistent with all of the development regulations on the books at the time of development. And so, again, if you want to go to the PD, potentially whether the 300 unit entitlements run at the time of going to another type of rezoning, it opens the door. So we can't guarantee that if you change it, you'll still get the 300 units.
So just a couple of points, and then we'll move on to some of our other issues. In the DO, it actually, I looked at it more closely after corresponding with Rebecca yesterday. It actually has 84 plus 7 units in the chart on the final page that arose from the 5-acre zoned areas. So, and there is an actual note there that those lot sizes can flex. So technically, under the present DO, we have 91 units that could be a half acre, with the balance being 1 acre. So we don't need to dig too deep into that now.
Why that language is there?
Because those arose from the 5-acre lots.
Again, I think that I would interpret that language to say is flexible in that the lot size and open space can flex as long as the net density remains 1 unit per 5 acres. So
I understand.
again, if it goes down to 0.75 acres because of the curvature in the road on a corner lot, that's acceptable, provided your overall net density still remains at 1 unit per 5 acres.
I understand.
Okay, that's the concept there. It's not, the comp plan is very clear, there's no gaining of density because of the cluster.
Right, we're not trying to gain density.
Okay.
Okay, so that's not our interest, and what I hear you saying is there may be a path to achieve what we're talking about, but that's really going to come down to either a DO revision or some board action or something.
Well, I think the issue is, and depend on the calculations, because if you go to a PD and go try to go down to 1.5 acre lots, then you won't get the bonus that you're allowed in R10, because under the bonus provision, you have to be 1 acre.
Unless the board determines to make a change.
Well, you'd have to do a text amendment to the comprehensive.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll leave that behind for right now, and I think the staff said it has some concerns about buffers and various things and compatibility, so how about express what those are? We're going to look to move forward with some form of project. Really, we'd like to create more open space and go to half-acre lots. I understand there's some impediments to that, and we'll have to figure that out. But let's address these other concerns you guys have so we know where you're all coming from.
I don't know, Darren, if you want to address the comp plan policies regarding if you do a cluster subdivision, that open space is supposed to be contiguous, and the improvements, like the roadway improvements, are supposed to be limited. The idea is you're supposed to cluster all the homes in one area, and then the rest of the property be open space, not have it spread out throughout the property.
So you were sent one plan where we had pods in several areas, and it doesn't really outline there our thinking. What we're trying to do, if we do the half-acre lots or even 1 acre lots, is create some form of open space that's an amenity to the community in addition to a large block of retained land. In other words, so that there's, trails, paths, something available to these folks at this project. But if I could pass around to you and you could put up on the screen, we had another plan we had done that I don't think we gave you that showed if we had all halves.
Yeah. They have it. Oh.
This one.
Let me see.
They don't have that one.
No, they had the other one.
If you could put that up, you'll...
Yeah, this one.
Right. If you could put that up.
Yeah, we can't do that. The best we can do is hold it up.
Oh, it can't go up?
We can't
You don't have a
do
treasure?
that.
Okay.
Not like downstairs.
Well, just pass it around, but in essence, looking up at the screen, that southern area, if we were able to go to half, would be where all or most of the units would be. Now, we still are looking to do something at the northern end, and it really comes down to how many of the 300 units do we do smaller parcels, and how many do we reserve for larger ranches and so forth. A lot of that's going to depend on whether we can find a way to do the halves, because it gets really difficult to make this compact if it's all 1 acre lots. And, I don't want it to be lost on everybody that not shown on this drawing is the St. John's property due east that is a big contiguous piece of open space that is part of how this was framed. So that exists and that's there.
And I think we actually have somebody from the forestry division here.
So, so go on again, and if you can continue with what your concerns were.
Darren, did you want to address your comp plan policies that you included within your comments?
Everything's pretty much self-explanatory on here, I think. The big question from us is showing where the density and clustering is on this site, because of the split land use. It needs to be consistent either way. Doing a land use amendment here. So just helping us understand, where you're calculating the densities to be located based on.
Well, that calculation's already been done in the DO.
The calculation is, but still the split land use, we need to know what we're looking at as far as the what's being considered under R5, what's being considered.
I guess we disagree on that point because we have a DO that covers a piece of property.
But
So-
you're actually going to replace that DO with something of equal dignity when you do the PD rezone. You're going to have a new development order.
So you're saying this right for 300 units, you want us to cram more units in the 5-acre area, which is the opposite of what you have in your policies with regard to the road, which you want to have open space by the road? Those are two mutually exclusive things. If you're going to start saying, put all these units where you have R5 over here and put all these units where you have R10 over there, then you're forcing the open space away from the road, which is the opposite of your policy, which is to create the scenic corridor, which we're going to try to do.
I think we're just saying you need to show on the plan what your density is on the R5 and what your density is under the R10.
I guess I'm confused. The DO already says that.
But you're not developing in accordance with this DO. You're proposing something new, correct?
Not necessarily. If we're not going to be able to do all half-acre lots, we already have the right, as I pointed out in the DO, to go down to 91 halves and the rest ones. We already have that.
Okay, and that's fine. If that's the case, then then the application won't be a rezone to PD. Then we would just go to the subdivision plan.
So we have really two paths, and we've got to choose here.
I'm a little confused because under the comp plan, the only place where it says going down to half acre is in the R10, not in the R5. The R5, the baseline minimum is down to 1 acre on clustering and not going down.
I don't think it says that.
I do.
It does. Yeah, so if you develop under the existing development order, you are at 1 acre lots then.
It says under the R5, a net density of equal or less than 1 dwelling unit per 5 net buildable acres. That doesn't say 1 acre. That says 1 per 5. So I don't want to get hung up on that today. We only have 20 minutes, so we'll just correspond further on that.
But the zoning is A5, and A5 zoning requires 1 acre lots. Your existing zoning is A5.
All right, like I said, I don't want to get into the legalisms. I think, if the comp plan gives us a right, wouldn't that overcome that zoning issue?
Well, what do you mean, which right?
If we're allowed a density of 1 per 5 acres,
Correct.
your zoning appears to be more restrictive than the comp plan.
Correct. I mean, your zoning your comp plan establishes density, and then your zoning establishes lot sizes.
All right, so we would have to do a PD to get any halves anyway, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay, regardless of the DO language, which suggests some alternative.
Well, the development order that exists now
Suggests 1 acre.
gives you 1 acre lot
I
size,
understand.
but it does give you the density bonus.
Right.
That you're allowed.
Right, I'm saying on the 5s in that chart, there's a note which appears to be in conflict with the current zoning, which we have to comply with. So in other words, to do halves without splitting hairs, we're going to do a PD if we do any, is kind of what you're saying.
Right, if you want to go down to the half acre lots,
All
then
right.
yes, you would have to do.
All right. And
I
if
think
we...
the main issue is
Right.
the density. If you go to a PD, then you don't get to do the half acres, then you don't get your density bonus.
Without either some different form of interpretation or a text amendment approved by the board.
Yes, it'd have to be a
Okay.
text amendment to the comprehensive plan. Yeah.
Okay, so we really should address more specifically how much more open space could it be? What reason would they have to do this? And give you guys a reason to support or not support that.
Right, and the issue is if you do it, for the whole rural area, then it's not doesn't impact your property. They would apply to all properties.
So would we have support for the text amendment or not? From
I don't-
staff?
We would really need to see it first because we don't know the magnitude of it at this point in time.
So let's study on that a little bit and have discussions outside this meeting about which paths we'll take. So what we asked Charlie to draw, and I guess there's too many different policies here, and we didn't understand when we saw the policy from Tina, we took it as, okay, we're good to do half acres, which probably was, we didn't really read everything. So we have to step back and decide, do we want to draw this with ones and show you what it would look like versus if we do the halves? And the halves is what I just passed around.
Okay.
So we can create a much larger block of open space. That being said, we were still looking at, do we retain some larger, farmettes or whatever you want to call them, mini farms to the north? So I don't know that we'd really have 300 smaller units. There's different ways to skin this cat.
Because right now, through the development order,
Right.
back page Exhibit C, in order to get the 300 units, it says that you have to put 1,172 acres into open space.
All but
That's
40
already-
acres are.
Yeah, that's already been created.
It's already
The
done.
tracts are owned by the state of Florida.
Okay.
So
All but 40.
after the DO, the next recorded document is the open space document, which references the DO.
Yes, the tracks 2 and 3 were already.
Correct. So they're already there. We don't show it on our drawing just because, it takes up too much of the
Paper's not
screen.
big enough.
All right. And then on the remaining uplands, tracks 1 and 2 are the 1,000, or the 1,017, and then track 3 is 891 acres.
Right. So according to that DO, we need at least 40 more of open space. We're going to have plenty more than that, even if it's just 1 acres. What happens because of the way the wetlands are laid out, you start expanding into more of these areas on this tract. So right now, where you see on that layout, that whole big block of open land to the north, we would not be able to do that if we did 1 acre lots. We'd have to expand the road network and expand into these other areas. So just because of the nature and the geometry of it, we'll just take more space. If that's the way it goes, that's the way it goes.
I mean, what I want to know is clearly clustering further to half acres is better for the environment, greatly reducing the carbon footprint out there. I think everybody would agree it's a better way to go than spreading 1 acre lots out, which if we can't get there because of, your comp plan, then I guess we'll just do 1 acre lots.
Well,
So,
I don't think that we disagree that, providing more open space is beneficial. It's just the way the comp plan's laid out, that if you want to take advantage of the density bonus, the way it's worded now is you're required to do 1 acre lots. I mean, you could still do half acre lots through a PD, but you just may not be able to achieve that density. You would have a lower density.
Well,
And I don't know, I haven't done that.
right,
yet. I don't know what
but the
that
math is it's such that we can't afford to do that full bore. We just can't throw that many units away. So yes, we have more money in infrastructure and roads and drainage and so forth if we do the 1 acre lots, but we can't really take all but 91 units, so that would be 209 and lose 104. We can't do it. There's just no economic reason to do that. So, maybe there's some arrangement that would be something the BCC would find comfortable, and we'll just have to explore that and perhaps do some more drawings and show it's either X or it's Y. So we just have to kind of pursue that a little bit and decide internally, do we want to go down that path, or do we just take advantage of the DO as it sits and do the 1 acre project? So let's presume for a moment we may or may not, end up with some half acre lots. We may or may not do a PD. What other concerns do you see?
But I think it's just maintaining the way the cluster subdivision language reads in the comprehensive plan and land development code. I think it's trying to maintain compatibility with the larger lots that are adjacent, having big buffers, and grouping the homes in a location that creates as much open space around it so you have the compatibility with the neighboring properties.
So we understand that. So the bulk of the south and east are public lands. And it was kind of our goal to force most of the units near those big blocks of open space where there are no homes. The homes on larger parcels are primarily to the north, and that's where we were trying to have our biggest blocks of additional open space. So we understand that goal, and that's kind of the idea. Now, we do have the intention of leaving some large portions open along Snow Hill Road. We were looking toward doing some form of amenity that could also act as kind of a visual hook. And we can send you some examples.
Something
one
like
of the things, an equestrian facility, something that kind of fits the Geneva area that would be an attractive draw. There's a project, it's somewhat more intense than this, up in South Carolina called Oldfield, where they actually set up, I think it's a 20-acre chunk in the front with a barn and equestrian facilities and so forth. It's a very attractive way to drive into a project, and it's kind of nice visually from the road. Whether that's the element we choose, so it doesn't really show here, but it's kind of the intent at that south entrance to do something of that nature. If we end up with the 1 acre lots, we probably will have 2 entrances. We haven't really fully figured that out. It may be that we can do this all off one entrance, but we haven't really developed this to that point yet. One of the
Well,
things
you did, but if we have to go to the 1 acre tracts, then more than likely we're going to have 2 entrances.
there is one comment. I don't know if we can fully flesh out today. Just kind of
Ask your
moving on.
question.
I'm going to. So there's one of the comments about fire that says if no municipal water supply is available, on-site water storage will be required. So there's a reference before that to NFPA 1, and there's no reference at this one. So I'm kind of wondering where that's coming from, or if we can get the actual text.
Right here.
Okay.
Okay, so you're trying to get the reference, the code reference for
For
if you have to utilize a tank for water supply, or?
well, on-site water storage. I don't know what that means, and I don't know what.
Well, I talked to somebody, and he said that he's talked about pumping out of the retention ponds.
It means if you cannot get water through, the regular utilities, water main, then you will have to provide some other means of fire protection water.
Okay, can we do it with the pond?
You can propose it. You will have to actually. You should have my email address or whoever.
Yes, right.
And we can give you the NFPA requirements
Okay.
for trying to accomplish calculations and everything in order for us to approve something like that out of the norm.
Okay. One of the things we haven't fully figured out yet is the size and location of our ponds. And that's the direction we'd really want to go before we build some big tower.
Okay.
Now, I know that the codes have changed considerably, especially in FPA, and how all this emanates nationally now.
Right.
So it's not necessarily local code. When we developed some years ago Hilltop subdivision, which became Mills Cove and Estates of Lake Mills, a similar issue came up. And back then the position was, you have no fire hydrants, build us a big tower. We ended up with some sort of declaration we made that was recorded that everybody understood there weren't fire hydrants, because I think at that point it was kind of the political fear of everyone's going to blame us. So we'd rather not build a big tower, and we think there's plenty of water in
We
the
still
lake.
rather have a water tank in lieu of utilizing a pond, just because of how the water is going to come
I understand.
and cleanliness and.
Well, we'll
things,
look
but
at the
we can
costs
still
and the
propose
size
it,
and so
And we
forth.
submit it to the fire marshal,
All right.
and we can.
So you're listed on this document?
We should be at-
Okay.
Yeah, you weren't, I don't think.
No,
It was, what did I just see?
Chris is the same thing.
It was Chris.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can contact Chris, and we can send you the information.
So we'll just dial down and see what's the actual regulation and
we want to hear what you want to propose, and then we'll comment on what you're proposing and see if you can accomplish it by.
If the size of the tank isn't extreme, that's not necessarily out of the question. We're just trying to avoid
Right.
something huge.
Okay.
That's all.
One other quick question on number 12. You recommended, number 12 says staff recommends incorporating rural subdivision standards, which is either no sidewalks or maybe a sidewalk on one side. And then back on number 42, it said sidewalks shall be required in accordance with the code. So I take it, but you guys are in favor of open swell drainage and no sidewalks or sidewalks on one side is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I had.
Well, I guess that's it for now.
Okay.
We'll have to circle back and decide which path we want to take.
Please do, let us know, contact us, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah,
Thank
as
you.
long as, those options are designed in accordance with the rural cluster subdivision standards. So which says like road lengths within a rural cluster should be minimized, the open space should be contiguous and should contain any environmentally sensitive.
We're trying to do that with half-acre lots, but it doesn't look like that's going to work.
Well,
Unless some kind of text amendment to the comprehensive plan, you could either create your own
I understand.
own designation within the comprehensive plan, if there's support for that, or you make a text amendment that applies to everyone, which I think that would be, more difficult to do.
Well, it may be that we have to wait until after at least the primary and perhaps the election before exploring that path.
Okay.
So we know, so we're talking to who's actually voting on it. So we'll let you know soon what we're going to look at. We may do 2 concept plans
Okay.
and come back and at least let you see. But I don't want it lost on everybody. And I guess at some point we should show the larger map of those other 2 tracks being open space.
Yes.
Because visually, people are only looking at the 800. So I think we need to show those so everyone sees, well, there is this big piece here, and that is part of the framework of what we're
I'm
doing.
going to need bigger paper.
Curiosity, where did the number 800 come from?
It's in there, 800 and something.
Where did it come
It's in
from?
the DO.
800 what?
About 800 upland acres?
891 is what's.
It should be 891, but
Yeah,
it'd be a total.
Oh, they were just rounding, I think. It's in there.
Wouldn't it include the acreage in the entire parcel?
Well, the entire parcel's over 6,000.
So just as a point of clarity, there's already an open space easement. St. John's owns that other property. And you don't have to answer this right now, but do we present the project as the total acreage? Because we don't want to have to go get a million things signed by people on this other property. They already did the easement.
The easement's a public record.
Or do we just put a note on the plan so people grasp we're really talking about this much larger acreage?
I would say that you're dealing with track 3, and the development order clearly
Okay?
pushes out track 3. And if the requirements of recording the open space easement over the 1,017 acres on tracks 1 and 2 has already been accomplished, just give us documentation that that's been accomplished
Okay.
and not being touched, and then we can just concentrate on track 3.
Yay.
And I suppose if you guys really want that court case documentation, we'll dig it up. It's pretty old.
Maybe those 7 entitlements say we can do half acre.
No, I don't think they say that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you, guys.